Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Partnership Guys podcast. Today is season 2, episode 20, and we are going to talk about how to build a partnership operating rhythm. We've talked in the past, and we say it all the time, that the best partnerships are built by design, not by default. Essentially, what that means is that most partnerships work on the business, they work hard on the business, but they don't think to work on the partnership. And one of the ways you do that is by creating a regular, consistent rhythm and routines and communication habits with your partners in order to make sure that you're constantly checking in, that you know where your partners stand, that things are going okay. But before we get to all that, let's talk a little bit about why partnerships become reactive, why they don't really, partners don't put themselves in a position to be proactive and identify issues beforehand.
I mean, I've found, through our conversations that it becomes very reactive when they just get busy, both professionally and personally. And then communication isn't deep. It's not purposeful. It's just very transactional. That's when stuff starts to really become reactive. Like issues will only get discussed when there's a problem, not trying to be preventative, not trying to, head stuff off at the pass there. And, as we know, especially in our field, the people we talk to, their relationships really do weaken when that maintenance of the partnership stops.
Yeah, it's because it's usually not just one big event. It's not just one big blow up. It's from not having those small conversations, and we're busy. We get busy, and we're in whatever world we're living in our business, and we get frustrated by, and the natural tendency for partners is to only talk about the negative, and the negative creates negative. And it's important to not just talk about things when they go wrong, but talk about things when they go right, when they go wrong, talk about everything. And then once it's discussed, and it's discussed openly, it's really important to just put it behind you. It was discussed. Now we have a path forward, and we're moving on, and we're moving on in a positive direction. The negativity it starts small, and then it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and frustration builds. And that's when I've seen it can all boil over before you even knew what happened.
Communication and scheduled communication are not the same thing. When you just communicate with your partner, sure, sometimes you talk about the good stuff, but 95% of the time it's about the problems. Scheduled communication is about sitting down at the same time. For example, Todd and I, we have a standing meeting at 11 a.m. every day. Do we always sit down for an hour every day? No, sometimes we don't sit down at all. Sometimes we sit down for 3 hours. But we have that scheduled meeting on the calendar every day that we need to talk about something that's going on in the partnership or the business or whatever's going on in our lives. And because we have that scheduled time, it's not necessarily negative. In fact, we've made it a point when we sit down for some of those conversations to always start with what's going well.
Yeah, what are the wins?
Just having those regular check-ins just can create alignment between the two of us. And now the three of us have started to do that on a regular basis, not necessarily every day, but certainly on a weekly basis, if not more frequently.
We're getting people we're talking to do that more and more and more, and we're seeing the effects that it had. There are people coming to us who they're barely speaking, and there are good reasons behind that. It wasn't just one thing. It was a build up, and we're seeing the more we get them talking to each other and opening up about what their frustrations are and discussing things regularly, whether it's opportunities or challenges or, concerns with the business, whatever that is, it's getting it out there, and getting it out there feels good. It's productive. It makes for a healthy partnership, which in the end makes for a healthy business.
Yeah. 15-minute conversation today can prevent a 3-hour conversation next week, next month, or even more 3-hour argument next month. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Small issues get solved before they grow when you're constantly communicating like that. But again, it's not just about business, right? It's just really important for partners to stay connected to both business and personal worlds and realities. Because that consistency really does build some trust.
What it's all about, right? Is that regular communication is about building trust and feeling connected with your partner. It's not occasional conversations generally are not positive. They're when problems pop up, and that does not build trust. And so the more you can spend time to be intentional and to be purposeful about building that trust, the better the relationship you're going to have, and the more fulfilled you're going to be in the partnership, and ultimately the better the business is going to do. But it's that consistency of communication that builds that trust.
Yeah, and it's the alignment. It's like you said before, Todd, it's not about how successful the business is. Big issue that I had, the lawsuit, was successful business. And I've had businesses like the lacrosse headgear that isn't even a business yet. It's just a mission. But the partnerships I have there, we're aligned. We're on the same page. We discuss everything openly, and we're creating big impact, and that's the mission. We are saving girls, one at a time, and eventually, thousands, hundreds of thousands at a time, and we all have the eyes on the same goal. In the good business I had, solar panels with my neighbor, the business on paper was good, dollars coming in. None of this was there. None of the healthy conversations were there. Every conversation was unhealthy, and quickly, good paper on business, money coming in, went directly south.
Yeah, but discussing, there's things that should be discussed regularly. And Stephen, talked about it a little bit. We absolutely want to hear about the wins worth celebrating, both in the business and outside of the business, because we are very invested in our lives, each other's lives, as we are with you now, Rob. And it really, helps with understanding some of the personal circumstances that might be affecting work. We've talked about it before. If we're not having these conversations, that creates a void. That void gets filled with typically a story that is just negative. So it's really important to be open and talk about that stuff, talk about different business opportunities, challenges, concerns, goals, you name it, priorities, commitments. There's so much, and it's so easy to fill up that time, and that doing that maintenance really does, serve the partnership and then therefore the business and your families very well.
That's a good point. I mean, meeting on a regular basis prevents us naturally filling in the gaps in the story with stuff that's not really true. Mm-hmm. Right? We have to have the whole story. That's just the way people are. And so you fill things in with data that's not entirely true. That builds resentment, that builds mistrust. And so that regular communication helps to prevent that from happening, because you're sitting down and you're looking at each other, and silence is more uncomfortable than having only part of the story. So we just start telling the story, and eventually it becomes the natural thing to do. We don't sit down and talk about the numbers. We talk about each other's lives. We talk about how the relationship is going. We talk about how the business is going, but it's purposeful and it's loaded with intent, not just waiting to blame the partner for something that they didn't do or did do.
And you guys have an amazing partnership, and it's been decades. And so for me, I've known you both for a long time, but it's only been the last couple of years that I've really seen how you operate together, and you operate so well together because you communicate, because this is constantly on your mind. And that's a great partnership. It's always a thought. It's not automatic. I assumed coming into this, before I read your book and saw the concepts and the different things that you guys do, that you just had a great partnership, that you worked on it, and that's kind of the end of it, that you built it to having a great partnership. And the answer that I quickly saw and loved was no. It's a constant work. 20-something years later, it's a work in progress, and conversations had to be had, and little things that happen have to be discussed. And that's what makes it so great and so strong and so much fun for me to be a part of now and watch the way you two operate together, is that you have those uncomfortable conversations, and to the point where it looks very comfortable to me. And the way you two talk about things that are uncomfortable for other people to talk about is amazing. And it's clearly intentional and thought out, and all those concepts in your book you play out every day, and it's fun to watch and now be a part of.
And to that point, Stephen and our relationship was very, evolutionary, and it wasn't always this way. These are lessons that we learned, systems and procedures that we built to help not only maintain a partnership, but grow it, and, give us the headspace to be able to pull in new partners, new people that we want to work with. And it's really been fantastic, really, because healthy partnerships, again, they talk about more than numbers. And, truthfully, business conversations are way better when they include the human side. Stephen and I, we get through the numbers talking pretty quick. He has his side, I have my side. And, I got to let him know when I'm having issues on my side. He lets me know when he's having issues on his side. Granted, we have the luxury of doing this particular business for a few decades now, so we know the ebbs and flows, but it's not tragic when there's ebbs and flows, because we're both on the same page talking about it. So, but it's very quick, and it's a portion of what we do when we do these conversations.
I mean, I talked before about us having that standing meeting every day. We don't necessarily do that every day, but monthly we do at least an hour. Quarterly, we try to do at least a half a day. And annually, we'll go off-site, just the two of us, and sit down for a day and talk about not just business goals, but we'll talk about how our fundamental focus may have changed. We'll talk about decision domains and whether or not there's new things that we need to think about. 5-6 years ago, we weren't talking about who's responsible for our tech stack and our AI, usage or whatever. Like, that just wasn't a question. Like, now you've got to figure out, okay, well, is that an operational thing? Is that a marketing thing? What is that? And so by making sure that we sit down and talk about these things in a scheduled way on a regular basis, we can really start to make adjustments into what we're doing and how the business is helping us achieve our fundamental focus before it becomes a problem.
And it's funny, with all of those meetings that we do throughout the year and throughout the week and a month, it's really that annual one is so impactful. I mean, it's just, and part of it is just being out of the office, being in a neutral space, just, getting rid of the noise, not listening to everything else that's going on in the office, whether doors are closed or not. And that has, it's become, a highlight of the year for me when we sit down and do this, because I will look at my personal life and goals that might change and stuff like that. Because again, they're all intertwined. So I find it very exciting and relieving when we do that. It's a great thing.
When other people come to us, other partnerships come to us, and they see the partnership you have, the question that I keep hearing is, how did you two get there with your partnership? And I love your answer in general always is we didn't get there. We're continuing to get there. This is what we did to get to that point. It's a continuing conversation. It's always a conversation. There's always things that are on the table, and anything that's bothering you is a conversation. And to me, that's why your partnership is so great. You have fewer issues because you communicate more. And the issues that I had with my neighbor were huge issues with no communication. And that's why it led to that.
Scheduled communication. It was just yelling at each other because neither of us thought the other one was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And that's no good. That's a downward spiral.
Quickly.
But it requires maintenance, right? We just got to keep working at it. It's like any good relationship in your life. It works well and it's meaningful because you work at it. It's the work. It's not the destination.
Yeah, alignment's not automatic.
It's fluid.
It does require maintenance.
Yep.
It requires work. So, all right. Good conversation talking about how to be a strong partner, how to maintain and build a rhythm. Strong partnerships don't communicate more because they have fewer problems. They have fewer problems because they communicate more, right? The communication comes first, and that's what solves the problems. And so thank you again for listening. You can listen to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can check out our website at thepartnershipguys.com. Take a look at our partnership pathways model and how we help partners achieve the win. No matter what journey you're on in your partnership, we can help. And we want to help, and that's what we're here to do. So thanks to Rob and Todd for a good conversation today, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.